Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Transmissions here on FreightWaves. My name is Sebastian Blanco. Over there is my co-host, Grace Sharkey. Grace, happy Earth Day to you. How are you doing today?
Happy Earth Day to you. I am doing great. It's one of my favorite holidays. And I'm just excited to be here and excited to talk with our guest.
Yes, last week we had our very first guest ever. Today we're going to up it with our second guest ever. His name is Conway Jeffress. We'll get to him in just a second. But first off, before we do, we're going to read a message from AIT Worldwide Logistics, and you'll see why that all ties in just a second. When you switch to AIT Worldwide Logistics for automotive shipping, you're partnering with a team of logistics professionals in Asia, Europe, and North America who develop customized supply chain solutions that are just as unique as your business. Whether it's trans-border, hotshot trucking, express ocean service, or an exclusive air charter, AIT has the expertise, technology, and carrier connections to achieve your production goals every time. Check out their link in the show notes. And speaking of AIT, our guest today is Conway Jeffress. He's the Director of Sales of Industrial Automotive for AIT Worldwide Logistics. He's got 24 years of experience developing global supply chain solutions for automotive customers. And prior to joining AIT, he held leadership positions with Ford Motor Company, Doxer USA, JAS Worldwide, and Panalpina in their logistical automotive divisions. Conway is a graduate of Eastern Michigan University, and he lives in the Detroit area. And as a graduate of Western Michigan University, I say, Conway, hello, welcome to Transmissions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Yes. Before we move on to some of the more topical issues, we just wanted to have a brief discussion about your automotive logistics background because, as the bio pointed out, you've been doing this for a long time.
I have indeed, sir. Yeah. So I guess I really based my platform from Ford Motor Company, and I had a chance to work with a very unique group called the SMPG Group, the Supplier Management Performance Group. We managed every aspect of inbound logistics for a suite of different automotive tier one suppliers. So I had more than 500 suppliers that I was responsible for, and I audited their facilities and provided Q1 endorsement and revocation for them to continue to work and manufacture parts for the Ford Motor Company.
So that was something you did at Ford, and I'm not sure when you switched over to AIT, but whatever it was before this global pandemic that we're all living through. And that's kind of where we wanted to start getting into some of the details. Starting with the way that we're recording this, and people didn't see the last half hour, we were getting all the technical details right here. But, you know, in the automotive logistics world, what can you say about the way things work nowadays as everyone's adjusting to doing things virtually, doing things via video calls, Zoom, etc.?
Well, you know, as we saw in the beginning when we were prepping, the types of infrastructure that you need in order to be successful in this environment are changing. And while the COVID issue will go away one day, the changes in the way we do business will not. And so things from robust internet connection to having the types of computers that have cameras available to you, which weren't are only available on laptops and not available as a standard accessory on a hardtop computer. So the types of equipment that we need in order to run our business and the types of training that we have to give to our employees and to ourselves must fit within this new environment. And you can see it whether it is in the automotive or the freight forwarding or in our home lives as parents. We have all learned how to teach our children via this same methodology.
Have you found that with that transition, is there anything in particular in regards to the automotive industry that has created more of a hurdle from working from home? It seems like a more collaborative space to me in terms of engineering and creating an efficient supply chain. Is there any extra hurdles that you had to overcome with team collaboration and working from home since the shutdowns?
Well, whether you had the type of job that you could work from home or that you had to go in, it's changed. Things have changed. And and you bring up a good point about the way that people are collaborating. So prior to COVID, being centrally located and being able to visit people face to face was a cornerstone of how you sold, how you dealt with people, how you developed relationships, especially within this industry. And now that you not only has the globalization of the industry changed and impacted the way that we do business, but now you are going to be interacting with people from all over the world in this exact format. Will we go back to the way it was? It's hard to say. I would hypothesize that we will not. That the cost of flying people around and gathering people unnecessarily will then it will contract, and only in the final stages of a new partnership or at special events will people be traveling and gathering together, and so it will be a long time, not weeks and not months, but years before we get back to where people travel and business is done in any type of semblance of what we used to do. Even in the infrastructure of the way our headquarters are built, will these people come back? Will they come back to their brick and mortar locations? Mary Barra, the CEO of General Motors, just referenced the similar question today. So the industry is not expecting a return to what it used to be, and the hurdles that you get because of that are you prepared for these things? Does the staff that you have the bandwidth or the experience or the training necessary in order to do business this way? And I think that really you could really see the analogy in the way we taught our kids and how well we were prepared as parents and as students and as teachers to try to teach and try to evaluate and try to engage. And you can't check on somebody's attention level if it's just a blank screen. You can't hold people accountable for not having the necessary technology in order to communicate. And so you had to bridge these gaps, which created costs, and they created costs in our industry as well. And so those are some of the hurdles that we've had. But AIT is saw the writing on the wall and reacted quickly. And so it's a benefit for us to have the proper tools and equipment and to be training our people on how to use them.
You say that there still will be some special events or certain missions perhaps that require face-to-face meetings. What do you see when it comes to the automotive supply chain as some of the instances where being there in person really is what you need to do versus speaking through the internet?
Well, depending on what type of job you have within that industry, you still have to go and actually see somebody make a part. Can you really make it? Can you really make it as many times as you said that you could? That's called run it rate. So if you have to make 700 units per day, can you really make 350 per shift? And can you run 2 shifts? And is it properly organized? So these aren't things that you can see through a video camera. You have to actually watch somebody manufacture. As far as is interacting between freight forwarders and tiers and OEMs, when you're developing a relationship, you can speak to people that you know in this fashion, but relationship isn't built virtually, it's built face to face. And understanding some of these mannerisms, their body language, their attention, all dictates whether or not you have somebody that is trying to partner with you or somebody that is not. And so it's going to change things forever. And the financial benefit of getting together will have to outweigh the risk of not developing relationships in this way. So it might create a disconnect between the way people shop and work with people and that could be as harmful as it is beneficial, depending on how the market changes and how we sell our products.
So you're saying that there's different situations where it makes sense to go places and it makes sense to do things, virtually. Do you see that pretty much every company can take advantage of these different situations in the same way, or are some in better shape? Maybe they have more of these, just infrastructure cameras that you're talking about, where more people and more teams will be able to communicate virtually, so they're in a better position. Or now that sort of the rug has been pulled out of the way things used to be, that every company has the same kind of opportunity to take advantage of this new world as any other.
So the opportunity exists with every company, of course. Are people actually changing with the times and doing these things and taking advantage of them? Advantage can be evaluated at somebody else's disadvantage. So if you can separate yourself from your competition in any setting, then you're providing a value add or an advantage to the way that you do business. And the more that people want to do business in this fashion, the more people must be trained and have the proper tools and have the proper internet connections and have redundancies in the way that they do things to prevent problems or delays in communication. As far as the need to actually travel and meet people, as long as there's different languages and as long as there's things that you must see in order to evaluate their efficiencies and their quality, then you're always going to need to travel. So if it becomes a quality concern or a performance issue, then you could discuss it, but you'll have to see it in order to fix it. And that exists in every level of the supply chain, from the warehousing of the material and how it is distributed to the way that it is moving internationally, the different partners that you have, and the end using locations and the ultimate location of where the freight is going. So every single one of those parts of the supply chain could have a issue with it that you have to see. And hopefully, if there aren't too many problems, then not going to these locations live prevent you from executing a continuous improvement model. So if you want to stagnate and you think that you have a perfect solution and you never have to see it, then that is the first step in destruction and problems in the future and remaining competitive.
Yeah. Right.
As the director of sales, I'm sure that you have been a part of how your team's being trained throughout this process. And I love that you brought up training, because I think COVID really exposed either the lack of training or just the underdeveloped training, scheduling, and guides that a lot of sales teams have across the country. It's one thing to be able face to face in the now say, hey, this is how you do this better. What advice could your team give or you give to other companies who are transitioning their sales teams to this work from home model?
Well, first, the way that you evaluate a sales talent will change, because organizing and, I guess, cold calling people that you don't have any relationship with is going to be a much harder thing to execute. And so hiring salespeople that have established relationships and reputation within their particular prospective markets become far more advantageous for any company. As far as the training is concerned, getting away from modules that you click and you answer some questions and now it says that you've been trained is not the way that I train my staff or the people that I work with. And so live demos, having meetings in the kinds of settings that we are having right now, and having them lead them so that they understand what the user versus a lead is versus the connectivity, the lighting, the etc. So it's easy to identify problems if you get people on camera and actually engaging in this format. and then you can help refine and improve not only their settings, but how they sit, the proper lighting, microphone sounds, and the like.
So they should have a lamp in front of their computer like I currently have right now. That's awesome.
Conway, I wanted
Indeed.
to shift to the second main topic in our list today as we're getting towards the end of the show here, which is the electric vehicle market. That's obviously a huge thing in the automotive industry in general, something I've been reporting about since about 2006. So it's something that is definitely caught my attention for a long time. I wanted to get your take. You said, we spoke earlier, the idea that everyone thinks they know the EV market is exploding, and that sort of there's a hint there that maybe it's not. What are your thoughts on the EV market in general right now?
So, and thank you for bringing it up. There's a lot of different things to talk about when you go into the EV market. First, COVID has impacted everything. We sold 11 million less cars in 2020 than we did in 2019. So that's a significant dip. And before COVID, we were planning on making or selling approximately 80 million units. We won't get anywhere close to that in 2021. And within that number, there's this growth of EV. And so 5% of all cars and vehicles were EV globally. This year, it will move up to 7% of all cars. This is a growth within the industry of 66, 70% growth. So there is growth there. What will really drive the exponential growth and usage of EV is the infrastructure that does not exist right now. So if a car can only go 300-400 miles without needing a charge, and there aren't readily available charging stations, then you always have a problem selling EV in the United States because of how fragile and non-existent our transportation infrastructure is as a country. So you need a car to move around in the United States. So it is not a luxury; it is a necessity. And EV is not a necessity buy; it's a luxury buy right now. People don't have to do it, and the people that are buying EVs have a combustible engine vehicle as well, so that they can travel out of state without having to worry about, recharging. So that's the key to that industry really going off, is at every Cracker Barrel or every rest stop, there's a place to quick charge your vehicle so that you don't get stuck somewhere. And that's the key. And then the heavy aspect of EV, which is semis. So, this is something that, companies like Tesla and Nikolai Motor and others are developing right now. And that's another huge piece of the EV market. And as long as there is a carbon footprint concern and a health concern to go along with the fact that it performs much better, much faster, much quieter than a combustible engine, then the market is ready. Are we ready as consumers? Yes. But is the capacity for the infrastructure needed for it to go ready? And it's not.
It's interesting that you touch on the infrastructure. All three of us are from Michigan, right? So we know we're one of the only states when you travel or go on vacation, you usually stay within state. You go up to the UP or you go to Traverse City, and I constantly think about how people want to get away from their homes right now. And in the areas that they want to go to are the last areas on the list for that electric infrastructure. So where the truck side, I think, is better off, right? Like the truck side is going to be going to places where you can easily set up these more city structured charging areas. Seattle, I think, just actually set up their own charging island area for these trucks. I do get concerned that on the passenger vehicle side that it's going to take a lot more time to get to a point where a lot of us can travel where we want to, and not have to worry about it.
Right. Well, the larger OEMs that have all now gone into the EV market will help move that forward. So when you're dealing with just one company that was kind of pioneering the passenger EV, again, which would have been obviously Tesla, and now you have so many others that are going into it. It really took a Ford, GM, Chrysler type of investment in that type of market to really push the needle. And so as long as they continue to be purely luxury purchases where people also have combustible vehicle engines at their disposal, you won't see those charging stations pop up. It has to be state and federally funded and supported so that that it combats the I guess the resistance that I would imagine the gasoline industry would try to fight it.
Yeah.
The good news is there have been some announcements. I know that Jeep is coming out with some electrified products, and they're going to be putting charging stations at some of these off-road trailheads where their vehicles can be used. Rivian has a thing called their Adventure Network, which is kind of similar to the Tesla Supercharger Network, but it's focused more on the sort of outdoor type places, like Grace, like you said, that you might want to go to that right now have not been a priority for EV charging station companies. Obviously, the work that Volkswagen is doing through Electrify America as part of their penance for the diesel thing, and there's I think 500,000 chargers in the plan in the American Jobs Act under the Biden administration. So there are things that are coming, but I wanted Conway to ask your opinion with the mentioning the Rivian thing there. There's a lot of new players coming into the EV space in the automotive industries. There's like opportunities for new companies start up that haven't really been there for many decades.
Right.
And
correct.
Yeah, so just what are some of your thoughts on them?
So I guess to the first comment on the Rivian, which has locations right here, right down the street from the house, they have already committed to 10,000 charging stations to be built. So that is really going to change the how that works. As far as their additional influence, their connection to the Amazon support and infrastructure connectivity, and all the Amazon trucks turning into Rivian built vehicles, 120,000 units. So as far as what Rivian is doing and what Tesla, you could say, really started, is an expanding and exploding market. And Lucid's new car and looks fabulous. And the more competition for anything, the better the product, the longer and the more choices that we'll have. And that really goes back to the entire conversation. So when you have a monopoly on something and only one person does it, then you pay one price. But when you bring competition, then it improves the quality, it improves the variety, and helps ultimately lower prices, because those exclusively made subcomponents that are necessary for making such a car become something that more and more people produce, and more people buying will then ultimately drive down price.
Conway, that is a great place to leave it today. The idea that we're looking at something but is certainly in motion. We're going to keep tracking it here in Transmission. Thank you so much for joining us today. And happy Earth Day to everyone.
I appreciate it. You guys have a great day.